I made that same assumption going through the pipeline. I got my head filled with all these people saying, "Oh yeah, when you get out, you're gonna have multiple six-figure job offers. You'll have people just knocking on your door trying to hire you. Everybody's gonna want you." And that's not the case, man. It really isn't. It really isn't.
Yeah, definitely applied to at least 30 plus jobs. They would respond back and say, okay, yeah, we're very interested, but still kind of waiting until you're a little bit closer, being ready to start work is definitely something I saw over and over again.
I really want you to work here, but like as it is right now, we can't really do anything until you're like at least like 90 to 60 days out. My daughter's 12, my oldest daughter, and she was just like, "Dad, like what's wrong with you? Why are you crying?" I was like, "It's real. Like your dad I'm actually going to get a job in the civilian world that doesn't pay chump change. Like it's a great feeling. Like I'm going to be able to support the family and all that kind of stuff." Applying to jobs as a Navy nuke should be easy, right? We're highly trained, technically skilled, and accustomed to high-pressure environments. But as we quickly find out, the civilian job search isn't as simple as sending in a resume and waiting for offers to roll in. From navigating ATS filters to translating military experience, the process is full of challenges and surprises.
In this episode, we're diving into our personal experiences, applying for jobs, getting interviews, and handling job offers. What worked, what didn't, and what we wish we knew before starting the process. If you're transitioning out or just want to be prepared for when that time comes, stick around. This episode's for you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Woodall, and we have Caleb Stewart here with us. And this is episode 2 of the Navy Nuke Network Podcast. We're going to dive straight into it. So, Caleb, what is the things that you did to prepare for your job search? Like, what did you do as you approached that time to getting out of the Navy? And like, what did you do to prepare?
Yeah, so I really had a lot of questions, right? When I first started searching for a job, I was really trying to identify and look for what I wanted to do really first. Because when I first started the Navy, like I did not have like any idea of doing technical work at all, right? I did not, like doing like a reactor, like working on a reactor, doing any sort of like electrical work was not something that I even walked to a recruiter's office and had that sort of game plan. So when I first transitioned out, I kind of looked at it as an opportunity to, okay, let me figure out what it is I actually want to do. I understood obviously the training that comes along with being a Navy nuke and all the experience that comes along and the sort of jobs that are at least out there that kind of fit with that sort of training and experience. But I wanted to really kind of gauge to see if maybe some of my interests that I had that were outside of the actual work that we did, if I could find jobs there. It just felt like a good point to at least give that a try. So I like looked into like really at first school. School was one thing that I really tried to find maybe like a different sort of like degree path outside of, a lot of the nukes. We either go to Thomas Edison or we'll go to Excelsior and we get, the nuclear engineering technology degree. Or for me, I went and got the electrical engineering technology degree. But I was like, okay, let me look into maybe a broadcasting degree or a business degree to maybe put me in line for a job that's outside of our training. So kind of, the first thing I did before even looking for a job was, try to curtail my education plan to fit whatever job I might have. And then after kind of looking at the jobs, right, that maybe were in business or the jobs for me, something I wanted to do was like broadcasting and kind of seeing what like entry level pay those jobs were. That was the moment where I was like, okay, I understand, these are kind of things that I want to do or things that I maybe find more interesting than kind of the current technical background that I have. But, right, my current technical background, all the time and effort and training that went into like my Navy just career, I didn't want to kind of just throw all that away in finding that new job. So once I kind of settled on, okay, I'll work something technical. I don't necessarily have to work a job that, I go every day. Oh man, I can't wait to go to work. I can't wait to do this thing, right? Finding some sort of balance where, okay, I'm valuing and I'm really investing the time I spent to Navy to something that can get a, earning that is where we, need and want as a family. But then also finding something that I had some sort of structure, or specifically for me, it was schedule that still aligned with me and my family's needs and something I wouldn't necessarily mind doing. So I kind of had that thought process, I would say, about a year and a half to 2 years out was when I kind of settled on, okay, I would go into maybe a more technical job. I just really want to find a job with a schedule and a job that has a kind of structure regarding the schedule that fit best my family life. So that's kind of where I started to search for initially. Yeah, what about you? When did you kind of start thinking about jobs or, your search process?
I started looking into like what types of jobs I'm going to work in, the fields that interested me. I would say probably somewhere around that like 2-year point, maybe even pushing it to 3 years out. I mean, the whole reason I chose to be a recruiter in the first place is so that I could have the time to really figure that out. So the whole time I was here, I really just took that time to get me right medically. So go out to all the doctors I needed to, get all that situated, and then to figure out civilian job life, like what that's going to be like. So I was pretty cognizant about looking for a new job field, like networking, figuring that out. So for me, I started crafting my resume, I don't know, probably like 2 years ago, going to job fairs, things like that. Just thinking of it as looking for a place to get my foot in the door because I wanted to have that situated well ahead of time. I had a skill bridge in mind the entire time, so I wanted to make sure that whatever job that I get, that it was going to align with like my skill bridge thought process and try to make that work out as well as it could, which ended up working out. So yeah, for me, that's how that works. Now for you, Caleb, did you have any like assumptions about the job market, like the job fields or the companies that we would be working for, like trying to apply to?
Yeah, so I guess majority of people I kind of talked to, I saw a lot of the nukes going to other civilian reactor plants. That was really definitely the biggest majority of job options that I saw. So I assumed and kind of knew that option was there. I knew it was something that I didn't want to do, particularly kind of I mentioned to before, just necessarily that specific sort of work, something that I was not interested in. But it's definitely an assumption I make, okay, those job positions will be there. Another kind of, I guess, maybe weird assumption when it comes to just the availability of just jobs in general was I did have a LinkedIn profile, say pretty early on. It was probably about 3-4 years in my career when I first got on LinkedIn, and I wasn't very active on it, but I still created a profile and kind of built out up to that point in my career. Probably every 6 months to maybe a year, I would add on different things and kind of where I was. But I remember initially when I got to my 6-year point, because I had not reenlisted. So, I had a 6-year contract, and it's just funny how, people on LinkedIn and recruiters and people at jobs kind of know when that time frame goes because you post, when your career is going to be and prospectively in. So I remember around that 6-year point getting a lot of like messages from what I thought were like companies, right? Asking me and like, hey, let us know when you're ready to transition, and we would love to talk to you about, maybe this field or that field. So at that point I was like, oh wow, like there's a lot of different opportunities out here, right? I have these companies, messaging me, right, almost on a maybe weekly to monthly basis about like all these opportunities. This is like awesome, right? I'm about to transition. There's going to be all these options and opportunities. So I did reenlist over that point, but I realized that these weren't necessarily companies reaching out to me. A lot of these were either like recruiters, that maybe it's necessarily not even recruiters for these companies, just in general recruiters, which is 100% fine, right? It's not me trying to minimize what recruiters do. Recruiters are a great asset, a good resource, when they're active and help you out a lot. But kind of just the assumption that being a nuke, right, you would almost to that level, right, like have jobs in your inbox to where you can just literally like scroll your email and like, okay, I want that one. Like that one fits what I want and what I need. And almost like I can kind of pick it without, putting forth much effort. Is definitely one of the assumptions I made through the process. 100%.
Yeah, I made that same assumption. Going through the pipeline, I got my head filled with all these people saying, oh yeah, when you get out, you're going to have multiple 6-figure job offers. You'll have people just knocking on your door, trying to hire you. Everybody's going to want you. And that's not the case, man. It really isn't. It really isn't. And we've talked about it before a couple times, but that's just not the expectation you should have going into finding a civilian career. Unless unless you want to work in nuclear power or power transmission or reliability or any sort of power generation, whether that's nuclear or solar or whatever else you want to do, like just conventional power plants. So they're the ones that are going to know who you are, because they're the ones that hire Navy nukes the most, because that's what Navy nukes think that they have to do. Like most of them go there, right? So I have plenty of friends that I know that went into power generation or a nuclear power plant, and that's fine. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's cool. But I know that a lot of them are doing really the same things that we were doing in the Navy, which is, shift work and dealing with all the red tape that comes with nuclear power. But I mean, if that's what makes you comfortable, you feel good in it, they're going to pay you well. So no fault to the people going to do that. But I was not one of those people, and I thought that I could just get a job at anywhere that I wanted. All I had to do was just reach out, or they would reach out to me. I found out that pretty quickly into that, 2-year to 1 year mark, when I was really trying to find a place to try to get my foot in the door. Like I said before, I really liked the Raleigh area, which is where I was stationed for the recruiting duty. So I was really trying to find a place out here to get a spot. So I just basically at that point started going through many job fairs, as many job fairs as I could that were located here in the Raleigh area, and even down in like South Carolina and whatnot. And just going there and trying to get my feet wet. About that 2-year mark, I went to all of the job fairs, especially the recruit military. Those are the ones that I went to the most because they have the most of them. But I even went to some, this is pretty funny, me and another Navy Nuke friend of mine at the recruiting command, we would try to find the manufacturing, industrial company expos that were happening at the convention center in downtown Raleigh. And we would just sign up like we were going to be a vendor there. And just say we were nuclear engineers or nuclear power, whatever. We were basically decided to be a vendor and get a access badge or whatever. And we would go to these conferences or expos, and we walk in our uniform, our camo uniform, and we would just walk around all the tables, and they were totally expecting to talk about military contracts or something. We were there to try to get them to work. I was like, no, what kind of jobs you got going on?
Wow, that's creative.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty creative. It opened my eyes to a lot of different things that we could do, and a lot of them, we were in uniform, so they're never going to disrespect us, right? So
right.
I made a lot of connections there, networked a little bit. They taught me about their companies, and they were mostly from around the nation. They weren't from Raleigh, but it opened my eyes to what possibilities there might be in places that aren't nuclear power, and maybe those some of the things that I was supposed to get. And I'm glad you brought up LinkedIn earlier. LinkedIn is another thing that I really harped on. I built it out as best as I could, and I really just started to work on that networking aspect, trying to find all the nukes that were in the area that I was at, so in the Raleigh area. LinkedIn can be a very, very good source in networking. I'm trying to find Navy nukes. And of course, for you, Caleb, you live in Charleston, but for those of you that aren't in Charleston, you'd be surprised at how many Navy nukes are in your area. Just by using the filter search criteria in LinkedIn, just try to find all the people that are in your area that went to, NNPTC. They have that as a school option. We both have it on our LinkedIn. And if you just, by those two criteria, you can find hundreds, maybe even thousands of nukes in your area that you never knew were there. And I reached out to a lot of them during that time period. And, for every 20 messages I sent to these people, maybe I got 3 to 5 responses back. But I made some friends that way. I went out to eat with them. I paid for their lunch and had them tell me how their experience went in transitioning out. So I got a lot of networking done that way, kind of opening my eyes to what possibilities are out there, because there's no other real nuclear plants or power plants. So all these people I was talking to were outside of the nuclear field. So it really opened my eyes to what could be possible.
You mentioned the job fairs you would go to and all the different companies that you would kind of talk to and discuss. How many of those companies you feel understood your background as a Navy nuke and really knew what a Navy nuke was and what we do, things of that nature?
In my experience and in my humble opinion, based off of the dozens of job fairs I've gone to and just the sheer responses I've gotten back from all the people that I've spoken to, because I made it very clear to myself that I wanted to make sure that when I went to these job fairs that I went to every single table there and tried to field their thoughts and ideas and just their general knowledge of the nuclear propulsion program in general. And out of all those job fairs, I have maybe 4 or 5 times that I talked to somebody who knew what a Navy nuke was. And every time that somebody did know, it was because of a family member was in the program. Yeah. Or there was one time that that person was a Navy veteran, not a nuke veteran, but he was a Navy veteran, and he obviously knew who nukes were because he was in the Navy. But any other time, like we're talking hundreds of booths, and they didn't know.
Do you feel like that was maybe, which wouldn't be necessarily a surprise, but obviously a lot of these fairs I assume were like in the Raleigh area or North Carolina. Now, obviously not a major Navy base there. You know, some Navy personnel, I would assume, probably in areas like that where obviously a vast majority of the country, there are areas that don't have Navy bases, areas where Navy nukes, even right specifically, right, because you're talking about just sub bases, carrier bases, businesses and companies in those areas just don't interact with Navy nukes very often. So I wonder if, in your experience, just because maybe you were in the Raleigh area, maybe that has something to do with it. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that the people that, or at least the companies that do know who Navy nukes are, it's either because they're really directly relatable to our job field, which is, like I said earlier, like power generation, or they're very local to one of these hubs where Navy nukes are. I mean, of course, like Boeing, for instance, in South Carolina, in Charleston, like they know who Navy nukes are. You know, they're next to the Navy nuke base. They're going to know who they are. They're an aerospace company, but they know who Navy nukes are. If you're talking to a aerospace manufacturing company in the middle of, I don't know, Missouri, they're not going to know, right? So yeah, I definitely think that it has a lot to do with companies that are close to that environment, that culture of Navy nukes, or that are directly related in the job field. When it comes to the job application process, I mean, I know it's a bit different for everyone, but in your experience, like how many jobs did you apply to? What was that experience for you like? Did you have to do a lot before you got any job offers or job interviews, let's say?
So I really didn't start applying. I would say probably, it was definitely within 12 months, probably about 8 months or so is when I started submitting applications. My initial feedback, I would utilize LinkedIn, we talked about, right? Really great resource. I would reach out to either recruiters or specific companies, hiring managers, and kind of just display, you know, name's Caleb Stewart. This is my service that I have, and this is kind of my perspective date of getting out of the Navy. And initially, before even applying to any jobs, the feedback I kept getting was, okay, well, you know, talk to us when you're, you know, 3 months out or 2 months out even. So once I kept on getting that same answer, just multiple times, maybe about, you know, half a dozen to 10 times or so, I was like, okay, well, jobs really aren't looking at my application if I were to apply, because a lot of jobs kind of work on like a fiscal quarterly basis or less when it comes to hiring. So I maybe waited till about, again, that 6 to 8 month point before I even like started submitting applications. And I would say between then and when I finally, I'd say probably accepting an offer was when I stopped submitting applications, at least 20 to 30 applications easy, probably even more. Probably over 30 job applications submitted. I would say I was picky with what I was submitting. It was definitely, wasn't going to submit an application to a company that wasn't a first, you know, satisfied with what the company offered as far as the job position. Kind of mentioned earlier, schedule, top priority that I had in looking for a job. You know, didn't necessarily want to have to work a whole bunch of weekends or have to do a whole bunch of travel. So definitely obviously limited the options that I, you know, gave myself, because I just wanted to initially be picky because I had so much time left before I finally, you know, accepting something. Yeah, definitely applied to at least 30 plus jobs. And yeah, I got feedback from a majority of them that at least, you know, because they're obviously hiring. I did find some difficulty in that window of time that I kind of discussed. If I applied to a job is a little bit further out, they would, you know, respond back and say, okay, yeah, you know, we're very interested, but still kind of waiting until you're a little bit closer to being ready to start work is definitely something I saw over and over again. Yeah, applied, I feel like, a whole bunch of times for what it's worth. What about you? Did you apply a lot to a lot of different places?
Actually, no, I didn't apply to many. I think it's because I did so much legwork. I did end up getting a lot of different connections within the Raleigh community, the Greater Triangle area, and I had a couple companies kind of with my mindset on that I had some good relationships with people that are higher up. So I really broke it down to those 4 or 5 different companies. There were some in like power reliability. I had some in like software. There's some software companies here in the Raleigh area, some engineering places, and some like civil type mechanical engineering commissioning type places. The last one was like a UPS, like uninterrupted power supply, like field service tech type job, that work. So that was like the last one. But when it came to that time, like you said earlier, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because when you make these connections with these companies and you're like, all right, cool. Like, it's 6 months out. I want to go ahead and like commit to this company and be like, hey, hiring manager that we made a relationship with, we've been talking for like the last year, you say you want me to come work there. I'm ready to pull the trigger because I need to know where I'm going to work. And it's 6 months out. And they'd be like, man, like I really want you to work here, but like as it is right now, we can't really do anything until you're like at least like 90 to 60 days out. Like what? Like, are you kidding me? Like how do y'all, like in the Navy, you're always like trying to plan ahead for like your relief to come, that your relief is supposed to come like 12 months or whatever. Like how can y'all operate and know you have a spot coming up in, but you can't hire them 6 months away or like have them lined up for that? Like it just blows my mind. But I'm sure there's reasons for it, civilian, HR, whatever. But yeah, so when I was talking to these companies, they all wanted me to work there because I've been, networking so long with them and making a good relationship. But only like 2 of them were willing to hire me or willing to start talking about it once I hit that like 4.5 months out. And I was trying to secure a skill bridge at the time too to do a 4-month skill bridge. So when I got 4 months out, then I would start skill bridge. And then I was trying to get a skill bridge at one company, but also work for another company all at the same time and, work the system or whatever. But that's how it ended up working for me. And, I also applied to jobs too. So, I applied, for stuff here in the Raleigh area. I probably applied, I don't know, like 15 different jobs, which I know that's not a lot whatsoever. But believe me, I put in the work, put in the hours ahead of time on the networking side to try to figure things out.
I believe you. I feel like it's just kind of talk about the timing that you mentioned earlier as far as jobs not being ready to either, interview even or obviously hire when we're like kind of 6 months out. That's just for us being in the military, like you kind of alluded to already. We have like our orders windows, right? You have 12 months out is when you can actually start looking like your next command of what orders will be available, right? And then you have, the 3 months after that, right? Your second window, your second look, and then 3 months after that, by the time you're in your second or third window, you're talking, 6 to 9 months out. You have orders by that point, right? So about the next duty station you're going to be at, at the worst case scenario, 6 months before you transfer there. So for us looking to transition into a job, we feel like within that 6 month time frame, you're getting like a little bit of anxiety, a little anxiousness. For me, understanding the why you kind of mentioned, right? Civilian corporations are operating depending on like what the corporation does, right? There are some, power generation jobs or some specific like civilian reactors where 6 to 12 months, they have to fill a class that they're going to have, right? So they know, okay, 6 months or 8 months from now, I can hire a nuke that I know is going to be in a class, right? So it's a little bit easier for those sort of fields to maybe hire that far out. But any other corporation, they're working, based on how much money they have to pay, or if a position comes open, then they are looking for someone immediately after that. So it's just those windows and that maybe anxiety to find something far out from your EAOS is something we all kind of have to deal with. And it's be interesting. Again, a little anxiousness.
Yeah, for those people that can end up land a relationship with somebody or like get a job, further than 3 months out, it doesn't come easy. So if you have that, if you're one of those people, like, good job. Like, I'm proud of you. Yeah.
So you alluded to already just kind of how meticulous you are and how meticulous you were when it comes to kind of creating your LinkedIn, and even like you talked a little bit about your resume process. How important did you find it in your actual job search and you getting a job, tailoring your resume and translating, again, like your military background into, what civilian companies might want to see? How was that process for you?
Rough. It was really rough. I'm not gonna lie. Of course, I had that kind of scratching in the back of my subconscious 2 years ish out, especially when I was writing my LinkedIn, because I was, trying to make my LinkedIn seem as, civilian friendly as possible when it talked about like what I did. And it was also kind of like how I kept up with what I did while I was in the Navy, so that I know what to write when I actually had to make a resume. But in the world of ATS, which is, the applicant tracking systems, these companies, they post these jobs, and within hours, even sometimes, you get dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of applicants for a particular position. And there's no way that an actual person is going to be looking at your resume, right? So these ATS systems, they're going to like filter through your resume, and they're going to bounce off keywords, tricky phrases, like we say in the nuclear Navy, just to filter out of all those people that applied what they're actually looking for. So like a recruiter or a HR department will put in like the keywords they want as far as like matching for that particular resume. It'll filter the first pass through to give it to where an actual like recruiter can look through, and they'll, skim your resume and stuff. So I knew about this all at the time. So I was just dreading the day once I had to actually make a for real resume. Our resume, even to this day, is still a work in progress. Man, I feel like I'm always like trying to make changes to it.
It's a living document, right? Living document is what they say.
Yeah, it is a living document. But it's on revision probably 50 at this point. Yeah, I went back and forth trying to figure out like what's the best way to write a resume. Is it, one resume or 1-page resume versus 2-page resume? I know there's a lot of controversy on that subject. I side with the 1-page resume myself, and based off of my research and the job that I did get, I used the 1-pager. So I mean, it worked for me. But yeah, man, like I put a lot of time and effort into making literally every single line of my resume try to read as civilian friendly as possible. And I got feedback.
So you talk about it. Let's see it. Don't you have it ready to display for the people?
I do have it ready to display. Yeah, I'm not scared to show it, but keep in mind, when I was drafting this, I did look through, or I did ask the Navy nukes that I found like networked and found in my community. I would send it to them, let them kind of give me feedback on it. And I have literally like 6 or 7 different like resumes tailored to, this is like a field service engineer type role. This is a project management type role. This is a engineering type role here. And like I just have it, all different ones for when I was applying to or plan to apply to all these different jobs. So let's see if I can share my screen here. Hopefully everyone will be able to see it well enough. All right, so this is my resume here. I was able to pull it up. Let me see if I can zoom in on it some. And I know this is probably pretty useful for those of you that don't have a resume made, but we're not going to like really dive into like each individual thing I have here. But I do want to show like when I'm crafting my resume, I want to make the best use of white space as possible. I mean, you can see I have a lot of information on this document.
Like a plan of the day, best use of white space on the plan of the day.
Yeah. There's a lot of information on this document, and as you can see, there's not much white space, but there's just enough to separate it into the different segments. And I have this optimized for like ATS systems, right? I want to get as much keywords and tricky phrases in here as I can, only on 1 page. And if it was able to get to a hiring manager, that when they do their like 7-second, or through a recruiter, when they do like the 7-second skim, they could see the headers, they can see the summary information for each group of bullets. I don't have a lot of bullets in there. So it's very optimized for efficiency, shall I say. So yeah, you can see in here, the biggest thing when it comes to the type of resume that I made is that each one of my bullet points, or I have a grouping of bullet points. So like under like the program manager, Navy marketing, advertising, you see that. But underneath, I have bullet points that go through each thing, but I have it separated into different like categories. So I have like one, obviously project management, and then I have another that says team leadership, another budget management, and then I have like something in bold for each like a group, and then I have those like qualitative information bullets in here. But all these bullets that are shown underneath all these different groupings is only one line long, right? This is what took me so long to make these resumes, is because I tailored it to be where it doesn't go to the next line. So it only takes up one line. Every single bullet on here takes only one line, so that I can make the best use of that white space like we were talking about. Because even if it was just one word into the next line, then that's a whole other line that I missed out on.
Yeah.
So going through here and just rewording and trying to figure out what would fit to make it all work is what was so difficult for me. But again, how I made it where it was tailored to the ATSs, the systems, was that I would go through, like this one I think is a project management one. Yeah, this is my project management resume. And I went through, I don't know, say like 30-ish project management job positions that were open. And I took their like summary of what the job entailed, like the job description, and I took all 30 of them and I put them through, ChatGPT and said, hey, off of all these different 30 resumes, what are the keywords and, tricky phrases that are common to all of them? And then I had to list them out and like how much they were using each one, like to say like which one was the most important. And then out of all those keywords, I got, the top, 15 or whatever. And then I made all these bullets to try to include those words.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And I did that for every one. So my project management one is different from an engineering role because I did the same thing for all the different types of resumes that I made. I put a lot of time and effort into this, and just looking at this kind of makes my anxiety go up because I just see things that I want to fix even right now. But this is the resume that I used to get the job that I got. So it ended up working for me.
Definitely.
Any things to point out? Did I spell anything wrong that you can see?
Nothing that I can see. Now it looks. I think the one line or one sentence per line thing. It's like did you come up with that yourself, or is that something you maybe saw somewhere?
So I did. I based this. There's a creator, an online creator by the name of Jerry Lee. He has a company called Wonsulting with a W, like WON, Wonsulting. And he has a lot of like case studies that he's done using. This is like his type of like resume breakdown. And I kind of went along with his. I made a couple of tweaks to it. They actually have an online resume builder, like with AI, that they have created, that you can make a resume that looks very similar to this, that I would use as like a template for what I did. And then I would take that over into Google Docs, and then I would change up the formatting a little bit to make it work a little bit better. But no, yeah. So Wonsulting is what got me onto this. What made it so appealing to me is that if you do a resume like this and you do like what I said, I mean, in theory, like he put it to work, but I haven't been able to put it to work because I didn't apply to as many jobs. But you do a resume like this with like the qualitative information inside of it, and when you apply, you can apply to a whole bunch of jobs all at one time. So you, like I said, that project management resume, you make a whole bunch of them for project management based off of like all those things that I said that I made keyword searches for. And then you basically just go through and find every single project management job that you want and just apply, all with the same thing. So you don't necessarily, tailor it per every job title because you've already sourced a whole bunch already to try to get, to hit all of them at one time. It's a lot of work in the beginning, but it's supposed to be able to, where you can apply to literally like dozens or even up to like 100 or more jobs all at one time and save time on that and just, field in what comes in after that. So
like a mosaic of of that particular field to then satisfy, hopefully, right, all the different job descriptions that you're going off after.
Yeah, because supposedly like success comes with volume. So the more jobs you can apply for with a quality resume, the chances go up for, a callback or get an interview scheduled. Speaking of interviews, I've had my fair share so far of interviews, whether it's formal or informal. But for you, I know you've had a bit of an interview experience now here going into the civilian world. Out of all those experiences you've created, like what are the best and worst that you can think of right now?
Yeah, so definitely had a good amount of interviews too. I mentioned all the jobs I applied for. I didn't get necessarily interviewed to all those jobs, but I've had kind of various types, a good, like I guess diversity of types. I've had like multiple interviews with one company, so like I think up to 4 with one particular company. I've done another company where it's just like a one-off interview, some in between as far as that goes. I've done mostly video, like video call interviews. I have done some in person, like kind of like sit down at lunch, sort of style interviews. And that was pretty cool, right? Get free lunch paid for and definitely kind of a chill, lax environment. So overall, definitely all good experiences. One particular interview that I did have was interesting. So it was definitely the one interview that I had that did not go well, right? I don't want to pat myself on the back too much. All my interviews have all gone pretty successfully. All got really good feedback from all of them. Even if I didn't, get the job offer on the back end, I at least was told, right? They could be lying to me, but told that the interview went well, with the exception of one. So I applied for this job, and it was a financial job, like a financial, I think, assessor or something like that. And I say it, right, to say I didn't have any, I guess, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I didn't really have any interest in the specific job, right? It was the schedule of the job that allured me the most, right? It was a remote position, and it was, and again, like I talked about initially, right? Coming into the job search process, going to the job search process, I had a list of priorities, and really like kind of schedule was my top priority, right? The kind of job structure and how the job kind of aligned and then fit with what I wanted my family life to look like, right? It's talk about work-life balance, really the top priority I had in searching for a job. So the only reason I applied, and it was kind of weird, right? Because almost all the other jobs I applied for were all like technical based, right? Whether it be data center work or technician work, some like field service work. This was like the one kind of just weird, right? Like just financial like specialist or financial advisor. I should have known, right, going into it that it was just going to be like a interesting interview. So I set up a remote phone call with the person that was sent. He actually, sent me a message on LinkedIn that, my LinkedIn page looked, interesting and impressive. And that he was, knew that I was interested in remote work. So we set up an interview just based on that. Very initially, like within like the first, 30 seconds, he asked me, what interests you in this financial advisor role? Like in interviews, right, you are honest, right? Because you're just,
Supposed to be.
that's supposed to be, right? And, you always try to present yourself in the best light. And there's certain ways where you can be honest, but also kind of understand that it is an interview. So, maybe change a few words here or there, or frame how you say things maybe a little differently than you normally would. But in being honest, I told the person on the interview that, well, actually, financial sector and the financial field is something that I've never really looked into or never really had interest in prior to, seeing this particular job posting. But the structure of how the job is described is something that showed interest in and something that fit kind of what I was looking for as far as, my family structure. And he did not like that answer at all. It was, and again, this is like 30 seconds in, like it was an immediate, like, okay. His follow-up was, are you sure? Like, cause
Yeah, it's not like what you could do for the company is like what the company could do for me already.
Right. He's like, are you sure about that? Like, he literally, I think the quote was like, no one's in the business of wasting their time. I don't think you would apply to this job if you had like no interest at all in, the financial world. And I was told him like, look, I'm okay with like, finances, and, I like to think that like, financially I'm responsible and can budget, things of that nature, but I'm trying to be honest, right? my top priority when it comes to looking for a job is kind of this, and family structure, right? And tried to give him the idea that, and this is kind of how I felt throughout my whole interview process is, again, like I care what I'm doing to an extent, but I am willing to accept the actual, mechanics of what the job is, right? If, again, the schedule is something I like, right? If the pay is obviously something where I feel like I'm being valued, that's really like, my two top priorities. And then job is like third, right? For me, a job was just a job, right? At least when I was looking for this particular time frame. So again, he did not accept that follow-up response. And he just told me, he said, okay, well, respectfully, this will be the end of the interview, and thanks for your time. And I was like, oh, well, I was like, thank you, thanks so much. And that was it. So it was literally interview couldn't have been more than 2 minutes, legitimately.
Dang, dude.
And I got a call and I was almost like, wow, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Not that I didn't have extremely high hopes. It was kind of a random one-off interview. It was totally different from any other interview that I did. I don't know. I feel like I was being honest, but he just was not looking for, I think maybe I was had to be his 10th or more interview of the day. And he was just trying to, hear something different, which is fine. I respected it, right? Respect his time. I don't want him to waste his time if, he doesn't want to waste it. So that was just an interesting interview scenario. But, luckily for me, all my other interviews went a lot better, and they understood what I meant when giving kind of that general answer and description. Luckily for me, they were all job descriptions that I could speak a little bit more to, just because they were, more closely aligned to my background. So, it was a funny scenario.
For me, I don't have necessarily a bad resume, a bad interview scenario, especially not that bad.
Yeah.
It's just for the sake of time. I'll just go to my best interview scenario. The best interview that I had was with the company that I ended up getting hired at, which is Hitachi Energy here in Raleigh, North Carolina, at their headquarters. So how that whole thing happened was I was actually at one of those recruit military job fairs, and they were the big sponsored person there. And there was a lot of people at that particular booth, and I didn't have time to talk to them. I had gone around, and there was just a bunch of people. I was just trying to hit the booths that didn't have people at them first, and then work my way around. Anyways, long story short is I ended up reaching back out to them after that job fair, because I ended up leaving and didn't have enough time because the lines were too long. And I was like, hey, I really want to talk to you guys. Didn't have a chance to. I did end up getting a card from one of the people that worked there. I was like, hey, I tried to talk to them, but it ended up being an intern that was with the company. So I was like you're not going to know what there's no point for me to talk to you right now, you know? So she gave me a card. I reached out to the person. I got back to them maybe 2 weeks after that, or they got back to me. And I was like, hey, I'm transitioning out of the military. I'm here in the Raleigh area. I see that y'all's headquarters is here in Raleigh. I would like to come to the office. Can we set up something where I can just come in, just talk? Because I'm trying to do the skill bridge thing, internship, whatever, blah, blah. So I wanted to get in front of somebody, right? I ended up getting that to happen. So I went up to the main headquarters in person, in uniform, and I was able to sit down in a conference room with a couple of people from various departments. There's people from the field service portion, some from engineering, some from other aspects like HR and things like that. Because I saw my resume, my kind of all over the place. Obviously, I'm a Navy Nuke, but in the last few years, I've been doing marketing, advertising, and more like corporate type work. So they didn't really know, they were trying to hit all aspects. And I went in there, and it was really good, man. I had really good conversation with everybody that was in that room. And basically I sat down with them and was a little candid with them, spoke the truth, and was like, hey, I don't know what I want to do. I'm hoping to come here and kind of informally speak with all of you to try to figure out, based off of what y'all see on my resume, I'll have my resume. It's based off what you can see off my resume, and by this conversation that we're having, what would y'all suggest me, what avenue should I go down, and who can I work with or whatever, in more words than that. And it ended up leading to where it is now. Like I talked to, after that, I set up a couple more, like more formal interviews with a few people out of those, and then people within those teams of those people. And I ended up choosing in between like the quality team and the field service team. I interviewed through both sides of that, and then they felt like I fit more on the field service side and project management. So that's what I do now. So I'm a project manager for Hitachi Energy here in Raleigh. And the reason I chose that like project management route, I mean, I could have gone the like actually a field service engineer route, but as you alluded to earlier, it's all about that like work-life balance, like what factors are more important to you and like what's going to be best for your family. So we've already done the whole like be away for a long time and then coming back, and I didn't really want to do that. And for this particular field service work, yeah, they're gone like during the week. They're out of town for a week or maybe even 2 weeks at a time, but they're doing that like about 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month. So I didn't want to spend that much time away from my family. So I wanted to do something that was more in the office. Project management route is what I did, or I did the onward to opportunity project management thing too. And my skill bridge that I got was a project management skill bridge. They were like, all right, since you're already doing this project management stuff, I know you don't have your PMP, that's fine. We see that you're already making steps towards that. We like your experience. Their power reliability, they're more understanding of the background than we had. And I already had that degree, like we were talking about, the nuclear energy and engineering technology degree. So I already did that check in the box to be able to get the job that I did because I had the degree. They were able to take the check in the box for the degree and then have the experience from what I had to be like, all right, we'll put you up at that level, starting out. So that's how it ended up working out for me. Did you feel prepared for your interviews?
I did feel prepared. I definitely had to do things and be actionable when it comes to my preparation. So during my time at TAP, I had talked to one of the other sailors that was going through TAP with me, actually an officer who was at NMPTC, and he told me about this program, American Corporate Partners, that he was involved with. And essentially what they do is you just sign up online, really quick process to sign up, and they assign you a mentor just based on a whole bunch of parameters that you can kind of input, just specific type of field that you want your mentor to be in and kind of like their background and things of that nature. And it's completely free for military members, right, to kind of apply and access. And what they do is they match you up with a mentor. The mentor kind of has the ability to, I know the mentee can kind of like yay or nay. They give you like, oh, would you like this mentor with this background and this experience in this field? And you kind of yes or no, kind of sift through, figure out which one you want. But yeah, so I was able to, once I heard about that, I requested a mentor and got connected with the mentor. And you have meetings monthly for a 12-month period, again, completely free. And during these meetings, you set a list of goals of essentially like, what would you like to accomplish with this mentor? And for me, my goals was resume writing, interview, like practice interview setting, and then, finally, find a job, right? It was my goal. So through my monthly meetings with my mentor, just going to go through interview questions and things of that nature was one of the main things that we did. So that was, for me, a huge help, just like that practice and getting like that immediate feedback from, can practice with yourself for interviews or practice with family members, but just kind of getting a feedback from someone who was actually working in the civilian field, who was kind of, maybe used to going through interview questions and just going through that process. For me, it was just really, really helpful. So that was a big part of my preparation that I feel like really prepared me very well of just literally, because again, right, vast majority in these days, interviews are done just, online, right, through, Google Meets or, Teams. So just literally doing that over and over again just really built my comfort and just going through that interview process. And yeah, so I feel like it worked. So when I actually did the interviews, it was just, it didn't feel as, that stage fright that you might get, right? When you're, logging on and you're clicking, you're sitting there, waiting for someone to pop on the other screen and they ask you a question. I just at least could do that and play it kind of over and over again. Not to say I wasn't nervous going to any of my interviews. I definitely had some amount of nervousness, but just alleviated that somewhat. So that was a, big help for me when it came to preparation. They kind of talked about your interview process with the job that you actually got. Anything kind of noteworthy going through interviews with other companies that, interested in you or you had interest in?
Nothing crazy. Though I do want to point out that when I was interviewing for the uninterrupted power supply company, that was like the first interview I ever had, really, in the transition, but it was too early, like really early at that point. I had reached out to them and they set up an interview with me, and I was like, man, why are they trying to set up an interview with me so like far out? And I interviewed with them, and the guy got on the call, and he was like, hey man, so I went on and looked at your LinkedIn, and I see that this guy had a recommendation. He's like, I see your recommendation letter that you have on your LinkedIn, and I know that guy. He was my instructor in power school, because
Wow.
this guy was a Navy Nuke. He's like, he was my instructor in power school, and that guy knew his stuff, and he's a stand-up guy, and if he has those good things to say about you, then you're hired right now. Like I'll take you right now,
Wow.
no questions asked. I was like, dang man, that's really cool, but I'm like way far out from my like I can't even do it. Like I
Yeah.
can't. So I ended up hooking my friend up, a buddy of mine who was on the boat with me. I ended up hooking him up with that job, and he moved up here to Raleigh.
Wow.
We hang out and stuff. But yeah, I was like, please keep me in mind, and like it's in like 20 months from now. But yeah, he's like, I was like, please keep me in mind when that comes up. But I know somebody, I know a guy, he can take the spot, and
Mhm.
that ended up happening. But no, I would say, I mean, like you said, if you can get like in that ACP program or something where you can like get some repetitions in and be able to talk to people, especially like in this type of scenario where you like talking to people over the computer, because
Mhm.
that's what they're all like. All the ones that I did were all over this, except for the time I told you I went in person.
Mhm.
Yeah, like just try to be aware of like how to respond in certain situations. They have the whole STAR situation, STAR. Like y'all can look that up some other time. But just know how to answer a question and
Yeah.
how to like navigate that. Make sure you answer the question fully. Answer the question asked. Like we say. But for me, when I did the project management like interviews, they asked me more situational questions and not like technical questions. So I
Yeah.
wasn't in there, they weren't like giving me schematic and like talking, breaking it down or like whatever, or troubleshooting or anything. They asked me like, in this scenario where you have a subordinate like has an issue and they get all upset and they bring this up, like how are you going to work through it? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Behavioral based question.
yeah, behavioral based questions. If like you know that you're not going to meet the deadline for a project that we have, how are you going to talk to the customer to figure out if they want to be under budget but over time, or they want to be under time and over budget? So they ask me like those type of questions, and I'm like talk my way through it.
Yeah. I think
So
not to cut you off, but I think for nukes in general, like just that um, part of the interviewing process is definitely something. Again, talking just blanket statement would require probably a lot of practice, right? Because nukes, just by nature of our job, very technically based. To read through a procedure, some nukes have just straight up photographic memory to where like when it comes to anything technical, right? A board scenario, right? How many boards are we're used to getting checkouts. So that sort of dynamic comes easy for us, right? When it comes to like start asking us about like whether it be feelings or asking us about, how, interpersonal relationship, maybe talking about emotional intelligence a little bit, like how would you handle this sort of employee in this, mindset, right? That's where some nukes might get in some trouble. So, obviously, right, everyone, we've always talked about already, being honest is important, right? Being true to yourself. You shouldn't make up anything or make up how you would handle a situation, but in an interview setting, there are ways at which you should answer questions and the sort of type of I won't say personality traits, but character traits specifically that jobs and companies are looking for. And being able to kind of convey that in the story can be difficult if it's not like a practiced kind of thing where you've done over and over again. So yeah, I think you mentioned, would it be American Corporate Partners, ACP, or any other sort of method to which you can practice going over those behavioral questions? Because there's really only there's only certain number of ways you can ask someone, a leadership question, or certain number of ways you can ask someone, how did you respond to adversity, or, how did you, so a certain amount of behavioral questions, right? So if you kind of just practice all the different ways and versions of getting that question answered, once you hear it asked, you'll be able to recognize and kind of go through your Rolodex of responses, and just, makes the interview process a lot easier and a lot stressful once you kind of feel prepared for that.
Yeah, building that little Rolodex of just usable stories or
we're saying
answers.
Rolodex. Is that too old of a term for some people?
It might be. It might be, man. It might be.
It's like a little thing with sit on people's desks and you can kind of sift through like phone numbers and certain things. I don't know. Then maybe it's old callback.
Yeah, that does age us a bit. All right, so how many job offers did you end up getting?
So trying to think, actually, like solid emailed like offer letters, 4. We got 4 actual offer letters that, this is the position, this is the salary, these are the benefits, will you accept? Yeah, 4 of those, which is exciting, right? The idea that we kind of talked about the whole process of applying to a place and going through the series of interviews and kind of feeling like, oh man, okay, they want to hire me now, right? It's a cool thing to kind of get and receive. Yeah, so I got 4 offers, which was, appreciated for, right? I feel like it's a blessing to be able to kind of decide and kind of do pros and cons and figure out exactly, what you want to accept and go with. What about you? How many offers did you get?
So we already talked about how I like narrowed it down to a few companies that I wanted to work for. Out of those, and I guess because also I was kind of on a time constraint for getting my skill bridge accepted, and like I needed to get a company and all that stuff. So for me, I ended up getting 2 job offers before I accepted the one for Hitachi. It's definitely an exciting, joyous time if you get a job offer that meets what it is what you were expecting or more than what you were expecting. I know when I got the job offer from Hitachi, taking my daughter to school that morning, and I got it like waiting for her school to open. I read it. I said, congratulations, like blah blah, and put it on there. Man, I just started, tears coming down my face, and my daughter, she's like 12. My daughter's 12, my oldest daughter, and she was just like, Dad, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? I was like, it's real.
Right.
Your dad, I'm actually going to get a job in the civilian world that doesn't pay chump change. Like it's a great feeling. Like I'm going to be able to support the family and all that kind of stuff, So it's definitely a roller coaster of emotions. But with that being said, I mean, I guess we can talk about maybe like negotiations. Did you try to negotiate with that at all, or what?
Yeah, so when I end up accepting, we'll get to that. I try to negotiate, and whether or not they, negotiation takes two parties back and forth. It was really just back, not really forth. But for one particular one, I definitely did try, attempt to negotiate. And one thing is with negotiation, again, right? For me, schedule, job, what it is, the amount of money it takes. It's all, you have all these different realms and all these different, I guess, almost think of it like levers to where you can pull in before you kind of are satisfied with whatever it is, right? So in negotiating, I try my best to kind of be a little creative when it comes to like, okay, if I don't like maybe the schedule, or if I don't like the amount of money, what are some other parts of the job that I think I could maybe, whether it be PTO or whether it be maybe a little bit of this, maybe more remote time. If it's a job that has a kind of hybrid, maybe if I, can do this a little bit more remote, it's a little bit more accepting for me. So I definitely, one particular offer, I do remember getting it. Financially, it wasn't necessarily where I wanted it to be. I mean, I knew that there wasn't a lot of room financially for them to kind of go up just based on our initial discussions that we had. So my counter was kind of like, okay, like, do you think maybe you could maybe offer an extra remote day or things of that nature, just kind of, again, make it a little bit more accepting. And the job wasn't able to, and ultimately didn't get to the point of accepting that particular position. But yeah, so I think negotiating is definitely, it takes a little bit of tact, because, you want to be respectful, right? You want to be realistic too, right? If a job gives you an offer, you don't want to, go, 25, 50% above what they're offering you, thinking, okay, at some point it's like, okay, like we're actual corporation who actually needs to make money. So like, you don't want to waste their time, but you do want to ensure that you're getting what you're worth. And what you're willing to accept. So it's a little bit of a line there that you got to, dance and kind of figure out. I think ultimately understanding what you want, kind of going in with, whether it be, if it's finances, your number, if it's schedule, whatever that schedule is, if it's like PTO, how many days off you want, right? Know whatever that is and what you want to not go below. And if it's below that, right, get up to, try to whatever way you can get to where you want. So just knowing what you want, what you need, what fits you, and then, utilize that. But yeah, so I really think the most important part when it comes to negotiating is really just identifying those parameters that are the most important to you. Again, whether it be like a specific salary, specific amount of time off you want, like maybe hybrid or remote schedule, kind of identifying whatever that is and utilizing that to kind of be your framework when it comes to how you negotiate. So again, if the salary is maybe a little lower, maybe increasing that PTO, or if the maybe not as much remote work as you want, maybe increasing the salary, or, just doing whatever you can to kind of operate those levers to where the offer is a accepting place that you're willing to go with.
In my opinion, a lot of people don't think about when it comes time to negotiate, like give yourself the time to be able to think about those creative ways. Because sometimes you might get where they, instead of just saying, all right, we'll get back to you, they'll like give it to you like in the interview. Like you might be like your third or fourth interview, final interview is like, all right, cool. $120,000 with a $10,000 signing bonus. You want to take it? Instead of just being like, oh, wow. Oh, yes, I'll take it right now. Like give yourself that time to be like, yeah, respectfully, I'd like to take the time to, weigh my options and look what I got to do, all kind of, whatever you got to say to be able to take a breath, look at it, research if that's what you want, and then come up with a creative way to maybe ask for a little bit more or whatever fits your situation. Because if a business is going to give that to you and be like, you gotta take it now or it's over, like maybe you shouldn't be working there in the first place. But I just like respectfully, just give me 24 hours to think about it, see if it's the right fit for my family, whatever. They should say yes, and then they give you the time to come up with that creative way, like you were talking about, like if that's going to fit or if you can move things here or there.
Yeah. So when it comes to your offer that you actually got from the company that you end up going with, obviously something that fit and that you're willing to accept, otherwise you wouldn't be working there, compared to kind of your expectations, right? We're saying 12 months ago, 2 years ago, right, when you were thinking about the job that you're going to go for, like we say the salary or other parts of the job offer, benefits, taxes, PTO, those, did it meet your expectations, or, did it come like close to your expectations? What would you say?
At face value, especially when I first got the job offer, yeah, it exceeded my expectations, to be honest. But until I got into the weeds of it, it wasn't as good as I thought. When we were talking about in the last episode, we're talking about like insurance and stuff you have to pay for like that, and like taxes. Like I had those things in the back of my mind, but I didn't really calculate for them like 100% like I should have. So I mean, I'm still netting more money than I was when I was in the Navy, but it's not by that much. So salary wise, not as high as I'd like for it to be. I mean, it's up well into the six figures, but still, of course, we all want to make a whole bunch of money when we get out of the Navy. So, we can make double the amount of money that I'm doing now, but got to be a little bit realistic. But the work-life balance, though, is pretty sweet at the moment. How my team works is that I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from home right here. This is my office. And then on Wednesdays, I go into the office. I'm going into the office one day a week. I don't have to commute anymore. I get the weekends off. I'm a salary position. We have permissive PTO. So basically whenever you need it, you can take it. You don't have like a set number, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. As far as the project management stuff goes, like I don't have to travel crazy like a field service does, but I can travel kind of like if I want to, or if I'm needed at a certain site. So it's like it is an international company, but we're in North America. So Canada, United States, Mexico. So if I had a customer in one of those countries that needed something, I could go to that site, on company dime and do what I need to do. So I can travel to wherever in the country that I really want. So that's a lot of cool things with it. There's a bonus structure, annual bonus structure with the company too. So depending on company outcomes for that fiscal year. So it ended up working out pretty well as far as like balancing out all the different things that I want. And I know for you, it was kind of the same situation too, right? With the balance for the jobs that you ended up taking.
Yeah, definitely the balance. This particular the job that I ended up accepting, the salary was more, and out of all offers I got, it was well more than any of the other offers that I had. Which on the surface looks like, oh man, it's probably why I jumped on the opportunity, but it also fit the other needs or desires, at least, that I had regarding the schedule and the structure of the work, and not necessarily working too many weekends and things of that nature. So as far as the salary expectations, I would say overall, right, if you're like really looking at like a quantity, the amount of jobs that maybe had like that technical kind of structure and maybe aligned with some of our training, things of that nature. Overall, I would say they maybe salary-wise a little bit lower, actually. Specifically, I would say the entry-level positions, the positions where you would kind of start off at a little bit lower than I was expecting going into it. So it did take some sifting and some finding and some networking and utilizing some tools before I really found something that I was, at least financially willing to accept. So that was, a couple of nervous moments there, looking and finding jobs and positions and, going through the interview process and then getting offers. And it was like, it's a little bit lower than I was hoping for, or kind of had that, happen a couple of times before finally getting something that I was comfortable with. Definitely something maybe I wish I knew. Not to say I wouldn't necessarily have changed anything, but it would have at least established some expectations when it comes to what's out there. There's things out there that fit our training and fit what we nukes maybe have done, but that the financial part of it specifically, may not be exactly, what we're looking for, or exactly maybe what we got paid in the Navy, right? There are some obviously financial benefits to being, active duty, and specifically a nuke, right? When it comes to bonuses and like you kind of mentioned, taxes, having, a good amount of your wage in the military non-tax. So just being prepared for that and allowing, understanding those numbers when you're out looking for a job is definitely an important part of this process. So we harped on it in the previous video, but definitely when it comes to salaries and actually getting an offer, understanding that as well.
Yeah, well, they always say that it's easier to find a job when you have a job. And a good thing for us now that we're civilians is that we're not locked into a company, for years on end. Not to say that we won't work there for years on end. It's just that you don't have that like gloom and doom, like if you hate your job or lifestyle, that, you can change it. You're not in the military anymore,
Right.
And, I know that you, Caleb, and I as well are always going to be like trying to better ourselves and like get more out of the situation that we have. So, we're just going to be gaining experience, getting new certifications or knowledge on whatever, and just trying to move forward. And if that takes us other places, it does. If it doesn't, we can just make the best of what we got. But I think this episode was a great discussion for you Navy nukes out there. If you are having challenges with your transition, if you want to figure out things that you are like having questions about, please let us know what those questions are. And we want to be able to answer those questions in upcoming videos or in the podcast, because we want to make lives easier for Navy nukes in their transition, obviously.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. Go to LinkedIn, subscribe to the channel, comment any questions or video ideas or just things that you guys want to talk about, right? We're willing to listen. Definitely appreciate all the up to this point, right? Since our last podcast video, we've kind of, I guess, gone public a little bit and kind of sent the call out there for nukes to come on and join what we have going on. Appreciate all the positive feedback we've gotten to this point when it comes to what we've done so far and what we're really trying to do for the community. Yeah, just, if you know a nuke who maybe isn't familiar or understand yet what we have going on here, please share this channel with them and the videos that we have. We're really trying to open up and expand and really connect and, again, help all the nukes who are out there, right? Because I feel like we are our strongest advocates, right? We kind of know what we've been through and know what we're looking for as we go through this transition. So helping out each other is only going to be easier if we stay connected. So Yeah, I appreciate you, Justin, for opening up this opportunity, and definitely looking forward to the future.
Well said, man. Let's get to work. We'll see y'all in the next video.